And so what we see with Alexander the Great, I'll just start from here, is he's king. Where do I put my note?
In your pocket?
No.
In your other pocket?
This will happen all the time.
Oh, they're
They're
right
right
there
there.
on the fingers.
Thank you, I appreciate that. He reshapes the Greek world. If you remember, Greece was all these little city-states, right? And actually, let's move on. Let's see one more slide. This is where we're going to see most of our slide for this lecture. Is if you remember about Greece, Greece was a bunch of little city-states, right? Greece was just these little city-states that we're looking at. Okay? Remember what the city-state was called? Does anyone remember what the city-state was called? Polis. Right, and so it's just these little polis, right? A bunch of little polises, or poli, I think is how we would say it in Greek. I'm not sure what those polis. Anyway, what he does is he will unify it, and he will take the idea of the polis and spread it to everywhere we see on this map. Okay? Everywhere we see on this map will soon become Greek because of Alexander the Great. Okay, do you remember how we talked about Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, these ideas, these thinkers, these guys?
Yeah.
The reason they are known is because they are influential right before Alexander takes over, and he spreads them. He spreads that culture throughout all of these areas. Okay? That's the reason they're influential. If they stay in just little Greece, probably not as prominent. Okay? Probably not as prominent. But it's Alexander who really puts Greece on the stage, on the world stage. Okay. So he's born in Macedonia, okay, which is up here. He's born in Macedonia up here, okay? And he's born to a Macedonian father and a Greek mother, okay? A Macedonian father and a Greek mother. All right? Okay.
What kind of parents did he have?
Macedonian father, Greek mother. And we'll get into his father in a second. His father's name is Philip II.
Oh, Jacob.
Okay, you remember about Philip II, and that's important. Now, when we come across Alexander, what we're really coming across is he's born in a time where Greek is probably at one of its weakest points. Okay, modern Greece. The polises, the great polises of Sparta and Athens have gone to war with each other and have weakened each other greatly. Another one of them, Thebes, comes down and tries to do some stuff, and it gets weakened as well. And so all of the Greek poli are pretty weak at this point when Alexander comes up. But they are not as weak as Philip's Macedonia. Macedonia is very weak. It gets attacked by the Greeks up here every once in a while. The barbarians over here and over here come in and attack it a lot. Okay. And so what we see with Philip is we see him needing to reorganize and plant himself firmly as a leader in Macedonia, which is exactly what he does. Okay? Okay. The first thing I want to do about Philip is I want to ask, was he Greek? And this is important for when we talk about Alexander being Philip's son. Was he a Greek? What are the two things that make a Greek a Greek?
That he speaks Greek.
Language and
Culture.
culture. Right. You have the same language and the same culture, you are a Greek. Now, culture we know about. They believe in the same gods. They have pretty much the same ideals. There's one difference in that Philip is a polygamist, and we'll get into that in a second. And Macedonian kings are pretty much polygamous, and we'll find out why. So culture we know. Well, we shouldn't cross it out. We should check it. Right? Culture we know. He has the same culture. Now, language is an interesting part. And the reason we know he has the same culture is because it's basically the first Macedonian king is known to be the descendant, the son of Zeus, right? And so all the kings sent come from Zeus, okay? And from language, and later on we're going to see Alexander claim these same things, that he's divine, okay? Now, so they have the same thing. They're allowed to compete in the Olympics. But what we learn about Macedonian is it's pretty much Greek. It's a dialect of Greek. What's a dialect?
Different type.
Different type? Okay, what are some dialects of English?
Isn't there different kinds of English?
Right, different kinds of English, that's right. But what are some dialects? They're also called accents in some cases.
Like
Texas, a southern one's a dialect, right? Different words in some cases that you might not understand. Okay, what about New Jersey? What about like maybe Australian? What about South African? What about Pidgin English? Right? These are different accents, the different dialects, the different way that you speak. And the dialect is so unique up here that the Athenians down here necessarily don't understand it, so they don't call them Greek. But we can pretty much understand that they are Greek. So we have up here the Macedonians being Greek. And what we have is we have Philip taking a lesson from another Greek. Okay, another group of Greeks called the Spartans. Remember we talked about the Spartans. And he takes this lesson, what he does is he wins a battle and he wins a bunch of war slaves and he makes them work on agriculture and he creates a professional army. This is very important. A professional army.
Is this still Philip too?
Is this Philip?
This is still Philip II. Sorry, we haven't gotten to Alexander yet. Okay, I don't even know if he's born by this point. This is Alexander's dad, and he's crucial in understanding why Alexander's able to do what he does. Because his father really sets the stage for him to be great. Okay, he has a professional army. What does professional army mean? It means that the soldiers don't do anything. Usually in an army, you know, and we have this in America. There's a time of war. Okay, well, young men, come learn to fight. We teach them in a couple of months. We send them out. They go fight. A professional army, you're always fighting. That's your job. You don't farm. You're not a mechanic on the side. You're not a weekend warrior. Your job is to fight. That is what you do. Do you remember how the Spartans, that's all they did?
Yeah.
Right? Well, now, this is all the Macedonians. Right? There's still some Macedonians working the land. But a lot of times he's doing it by slave labor, doing stuff like this, so that he can have a standing Macedonian army. And what he does is, he conquers Macedonia, he unifies it, and he conquers part of northern Greece. Okay? So he has that area down. This is, of course, Philip II. Now, I want to stop here and tell a couple of stories about a young Alexander, because as we're learning about him, we learn a couple of things. One, that he's strong, and that he's short. He's not super tall. He's strong, and he is short. Okay? And being strong and short, right? That's just him physically. Well, we're also going to see at about 10 or 11, he has a tutor when he's a young man. But the tutor's not important. The important part is that the tutor calls him a young Achilles. Okay, do you guys remember Achilles? Okay, who's Achilles? What does he do? What is he? What is Achilles?
Great warrior.
He's a great warrior. Very nice. Okay, so he's a great warrior. He's a great Greek warrior, right? Do you guys remember the choice that Achilles had before the Trojan War? What was the choice that Achilles had? He had two choices. No one in this class remembers?
Was it young Achilles?
This is what we called Alexander, a young Achilles.
Okay.
So when Achilles was about to go to the war in Troy, he had two choices, and no one remembers what those are? To fight or to
Stay with family.
stay with his family, right? And if he stayed with his family, no one would remember him. He'd be happy, he'd be respected, he'd die in his bed. But if he goes to war, what will happen to him?
Everyone would remember him as a hero.
Everyone would remember him as a hero, but he would die. He would be killed in battle, right? He'd be killed in battle, but everyone would remember him. And what does Achilles choose? He chooses battle, right? So we know that he's a young Achilles, and we know what Achilles' choice was. So now we have this choice by Achilles to either stay around, stay at home, and kind of grow a family, or to leave and go to battle. Okay? And what Achilles chooses is to go to war. Okay, he chooses that. And this is a young Alexander's hero. So the first thing I want you to write on your notes just for a second is I want you to write down, what does this tell us? What does this tell us about Alexander? This being his hero, this man being his hero, shouldn't take too long. What does this tell us about Alexander?
How do you spell Achilles?
It's on the board. Achilles.